Hi guys, what's going on? Welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, host Jan. I hope you are all doing well. I really do hope that, and welcome back to Chelsea News, the sometimes more than once a day show, if that's English, here on Football Therapy, where I analyse what's being said about Chelsea Football Club, giving you my opinion, but of course, more importantly, as always, asking for yours, because that's most important for me, guys, the collective fan opinion, and you guys starting up a discussion in the comments section. Many things to talk about today. Antonio Rudiger, hot topic of late because of course his contract is up in the summer. He's playing awesome at the moment, as he always has done really under Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea. Paris Saint-Germain have reportedly already made contact to discuss a new deal for a free transfer in the summer. Of course he can sign and agree this a pre-contract in January, which is only weeks away, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Thomas Tuchel's comments on Romelu Lukaku, Kovacic, returning people from injury, HAvertz, apparently hamstring stuff, lots to discuss, and of course Juventus are without potentially 5 players, lots of players out, huge game tomorrow night, so we're going to discuss that, and maybe we can talk about players who could feature in that game, possibly. Guys, stick around to the end, there's lots to get into, so settle in, get comfortable. If you're yet to subscribe, I'd welcome you to do so, if you think you might dig the content, and to people who are already subbed and to newcomers, make sure all notifications are turned on. That's the only way you get notified, and drop a like. Whatever, housework. So let's start off with some of Thomas Tuchel's comments. I just want to tell you what he said on Romelu Lukaku quickly. Quote, "He's not sure yet. Yesterday he was on team training and seemed okay. Let's see about the reaction. Maybe we have the chance to have him in the squad for the last few minutes. That is the absolute maximum." Excuse me. So, maybe off the bench. And I don't want to say whether that's winning or losing, because sometimes it's both. You're winning, great. Get Lukaku on to, have a run out and get a feel of the game again. Have that experience of being in a competitive top-level game again before the weekend. You're losing, great. Send on an elite striker to try and chase a goal and bully the centre-backs, although Juventus centre-backs are generally quite hard to bully. Do you know what I mean? So, he was never going to start this game from what we understood prior to this press conference. He's only done one team training session. I think he probably, on my gut instinct, I think he probably will be included in the squad tomorrow evening, and he absolutely won't start. And to be honest, there's a chance he won't even come on. Maybe if Chelsea are just about winning 1-0 or winning by 1 goal, Thomas Tuchel will not want to upset the rhythm of what's going on the pitch. Keep it there, try and see it out, and try and secure all 3 points. But it really depends what's happening on the night, the sort of feel and the vibe of the game, and of course how Romelu Lukaku is feeling today, this afternoon, this evening. So we'll see what happens there. That's not the only player Tuchel commented on. Georgie is okay. So Jorginho came off with a hamstring injury or muscular injury. Turns out it was just cramp, or that's what we understand, it was cramp, so it was just a sort of fatigue thing. Coming back from international break, playing a lot of football, a lot of emotionally stressful football for Jorginho as well. Of course, with Italy not qualifying for the World Cup and having to go through the playoffs, which is quite emotionally draining, which sometimes can affect your body as well. Kai felt his hamstring, and we have doubts. So Kai Havertz, maybe not good to go, but who knows, maybe Pulisic starts as a false 9 over him, which some people have been calling out for, and I've speculated, of course, in a previous video recently, that this could be a good option for Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea, playing a small diminutive player like Christian Pulisic to sort of explode into the 18 and even 6-yard box for those goals. And he's really brave with those runs, Pulisic. He really gets amongst it and gets stuck in to try and bust the, gut to score. And that's really, really impressive and important, I think, for a forward, especially in this Chelsea team at the moment. It's something that largely Chelsea have been lacking for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. Timo Werner remains available. I'll talk about that in just a moment. And Kovacic is out. Of course, Mateo Kovacic has been out for quite a while. Really disappointing for him and, of course, Chelsea fans. And indeed, the manager, because he was so good at the beginning of the season. He got Romelu cooking. He was playing as he does so well in terms of being press resistant, ball progressing, but as well, so when I say press resistant, I mean retaining possession, but he seemed to add assists and to his game and already got his annual goal, so maybe he'll get more goals this season as well. Timo Werner's an interesting one because, of course, he didn't feature and he didn't come on against Leicester. Despite being fit, it was Christian Pulisic who was preferenced over him, alongside, of course, Hakim Ziyech, which, by the way, evidently looked like the absolutely correct decision from Thomas Tuchel because he scored immediately and looks like just the ticket, you know? Maybe there's tactical profile things to both of them that made sense at the time to bring on Pulisic over Timo Werner. I think if you're starting one and you need them to do tactical pressing and, you know, running the channels and working the opposition, maybe Timo Werner starts. But if you need immediate explosive effectiveness for, you know, to score in the opposition, maybe you turn then to Christian Pulisic. I don't know. What do you think? At the moment, bearing in mind, try and not use recency bias. At the moment, who would you start? Timo Werner or Christian Pulisic? Bearing in mind Timo Werner, how Chelsea have attacked often when he's available, generally it's pretty good, and we've won a lot of high-profile games of Timo Werner starting. Maybe he didn't work too great with Lukaku, but Lukaku certainly won't be starting against Juventus. Comment down below, or maybe Timo Werner starts in the space of HAvertz, that if he's got a slight hamstring issue, maybe you play Timo Werner flanked by Callum Hudson-Odoi and Christian Pulisic. Who knows? I'm going to do a sort of run through a sort of speculated lineup at the end of this video, or quite shortly, so we can talk about that. So that's really interesting from Thomas Tuchel. He also refused to comment on the things like, you know, questions posed to him about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Doesn't surprise me at all. Since Tuchel has arrived at Chelsea, he's been meticulous with his diplomatic words and how he dodges any form of controversy, and that includes the Super League, which was like, you know, an A-bomb of controversy that a lot of managers were sort of calling out. He was just really diplomatic, a company man, a yes man, just to try and navigate his way through. I think Tuchel arrived at Chelsea, saw the narrative of a board that, you know, fights managers and fires them, and the narrative of himself that apparently emerged that he was quite an explosive, contrary character, and he used almost like swore an oath, like, I'm going to make sure this doesn't go wrong at Chelsea for as long as possible. They've got an amazing squad. This is an opportunity to win and do my work that I love with great tools. I'm not going to screw this up. I'm never going to put a foot wrong and say the wrong thing. And so far it works, you know, and they even bought him a £100 million striker. So again, it didn't surprise me at all that Tuchel tiptoed around this situation. Actually, before we talk about Antonio Rudiger and this Paris Saint-Germain link, let's talk about the absentees from the Champions League here. So this is coming from Italy. You've got De Sciglio, is that how you say it? You got he's out. Chiellini, of course, is a big one because I know he doesn't always start, but he came on in the other leg and he was superb, or the reverse fixture. Bernardeschi, which is obviously one of their most prominent attackers. Ramsey, which I don't know if he's in favour or not. Danilo as well, he's out. And Dybala is a maybe. So maybe Dybala can come off the bench, or obviously he's a huge impact striker for them. I think probably Alvaro, from the looks of this, Alvaro Morata is fit to go, which makes you sort of go, because you know the narrative. You know the narrative. The ex-Chelsea player that wasn't so happy at Chelsea comes and scores against them in the Champions League. This is how it works, right? The laws of narrative. Anyway, regardless, it puts Chelsea in a strong position. Sure, you could say Chelsea, an injury list, you could do Mateo Kovacic, starter for Chelsea. You could put HAvertz in there maybe. Romelu Lukaku, record signing. And you could make like a sort of injury list or an absentee list, or players that haven't had game time to come back into the team, and Juventus fans could go, oh cool, so we're in a stronger position than full strength Chelsea. The truth is, despite absentees on both sides, there's going to be two very strong sides out there tomorrow night, so we'll see what happens. Let's quickly reference and talk about Antonio Rudiger. Of course, scored against Leicester, superb performance. He's defensively immaculate again, and he was doing flicks and tricks in that game as well, really demonstrating everything he can do, pulling all the tricks out of the bag. So this report's coming from France. I'm going to quote Cy Phillips on Twitter that's tweeted about this. PSG have already started discussions with Antonio Rudiger's entourage over a summer move. So it's interesting, of course, Bayern Munich the big machine in Germany interested in him, although people come out and said he's not actually interested in going back to the motherland. In fact, the general consensus is he wants to stay at Chelsea and fight at the highest level. But I'm gonna, at risk of repeating myself here on the channel, he understands as a 28-year-old where his stock's never going to be higher. That's it. He's literally at the peak now. He's literally at the peak and it's only going to go down. He's got the opportunity to make the best financial decision. And even if he doesn't make the best financial decision to stay at Chelsea, it still needs to be close to the best financial decision. So to say PSG's up here and what they're offering him, and Chelsea's down here, if Chelsea were just a little bit higher, he'd be like, alright, Chelsea. But the fact how Chelsea aren't meeting, say, halfway to the two offers, it leaves him in a frustrating place. People, reports across the media, more and more coming out saying they think there's more of a chance he leaves now than ever, despite wanting to stay, because if he does not meet anywhere near the financial... I mean, imagine if you're offered two jobs. One job you enjoy, but this is your last time you can, this last contract, you can actually earn a decent amount of money. I know 28 is young to think that in other industries, but you have to sort of, put your mindset in there, like, right, this is your last chance to earn that amount of money, Again, this is silly amounts of money that you and I aren't used to. But when you earn more money, you sort of just recognise it as the norm. Maybe PSG offering him 300k a week. And his entourage has been contacted. And that's a serious amount of money to consider. Now, I wanted to speak about this because, it's financial alternatives for Antonio Rudiger. And I've obviously spoken again with detail regarding why Chelsea would not be interested in really damaging their wage structure for, especially centre-backs. There's no point comparing him to attackers' wages because they're always different. And you're breaking the wage structure can have long-term problems and foundational cracks to their whole ethos, philosophy, and system. So there's problems there with changing that. PSG, though, as well, I wanted to talk about. Of course, it hasn't gone right with Sergio Ramos, and I think they terminated his contract without him even playing. Sergio Ramos signed, by the way, as like a 37-year-old, and they got rid of Thiago Silva at 36, who is immaculate and went on to win the Champions League with Chelsea. By the way, Thiago Silva was apparently quite emotionally hurt about them going in for Sergio Ramos after apparently ditching him because he was too old. But he showed them and he's very happy at Chelsea. Anyway, back to Rudiger. He could be this replacement for Sergio Ramos, play in, instead of him be this high profile guy, but of course he's much, much younger and could be with them for a long time and hopefully elevate, their performances potentially. Would Rudiger want to go to PSG? Probably not off the bat, but if they offer him a 5-year deal at 300k a week, that's going to be very, very difficult for him to turn down. Obviously, this is a huge story. Obviously, we all want him to stay, and we all want him to sign that contract. But as updates come, we'll be reacting to them here on Football Therapy. So make sure you are subscribed and you have the bell notifications icon switched on to be the first to be notified, friends. Alright then, so let's talk about this game a little bit more. Tomorrow night, I did want to spend some time on it. It's a must not lose game, in my opinion. I think a draw would be, Tuchel would take a draw. He knows he's probably going to, qualify and at least finish second. And to be honest, finishing first ain't all that anymore in these last few years. In fact, sometimes finishing first can often be worse than finishing second in terms of the profile of club that you meet in the next round that might have returning players from injury, the reason why they finished second. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of mitigating circumstances that can govern whether it's going to be an easy game or not. But generally, despite that, you do want to finish first. So if Chelsea can beat Juventus, they will want to do that. I think they'll go for the full strength available. Again, I want you guys to let me know who you'd start. It's really, I think, I would not be surprised at all to see a front three of Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, possibly Mason Mount. Yes, he wasn't good or he wasn't great against Leicester. In fact, him and HAvertz were probably the worst performers on the pitch. But if you look at player profile and working and running and counter-pressing, maybe against this Juventus side, maybe Mason Mount makes the most sense. Mount on the right, Hudson-Odoi on the left, Pulisic through the middle could work. And then obviously Ziyech off the bench seems to work a treat in terms of finding the space for those lovely passes against tired legs later on in the game. To me, that kind of makes sense. In terms of the midfield, Kante probably starts again if he's good to go because you need that running. And who knows? Ruben Loftus-Cheek, strength in the midfield. To be honest, we'll be expected to have most of the ball. If we're expected to have most of the ball, maybe Jorginho to dictate play again. Same midfield as the weekend. If they're good to go, I don't know. Why not? After such a great performance. And, you know, Jorginho will always want to play well and elevate his level against Juventus. You know, the side that he was linked with. He knows the Italian fans will be watching. Possibly makes sense. And I think maybe Christensen comes into the back line. For, you know, Carabao potentially. Wingbacks are interesting because the alternatives now are such a notable drop-off from James and Chilwell, Alonso and Azpilicueta. You can trust Azpilicueta to be defensively sensible, but when you're going to have most of the ball, which I do believe we will have against Juventus, you've got to go for the first choice. And they're both young lads, both like, you know, early mid-20s. You think their recovery time would be pretty good. And they'd absolutely want to play in the Champions League. Guys, let me know what you think. I'm interested in hearing the collective opinion, who you think should play in this game. I've spoken for quite a long time, so hopefully you've stayed to the end. And if you have, thank you very much. Appreciate you all, and I appreciate you for dropping a like to show your support on the channel. And of course, I'd remind you to subscribe. Friends, thank you so much. Enjoy the football, and I will see you later.